Ladies and gentlemen, walking away destroys a narcissist. There comes a time in life when we must confront a difficult reality. Some people are not meant to stay in our lives. They do not love us, they do not support us, and they do not wish us well. Instead, they manipulate, control, and drain our spirit. These individuals, often bound by pride and selfish ambition, are what we call narcissists. They seek only to take, never to give, and they thrive on our dependence on them. But what happens when you finally walk away? What happens when you decide that enough is enough? My friends, that moment changes everything. A narcissist thrives on power, your attention, your emotions, your willingness to engage in their endless games. The moment you step away, you do something they never expected. You take back control. Walking away is not just an act of defiance, it is an act of self-preservation. It is a declaration that you are no longer willing to be bound by their manipulation. A narcissist's greatest fear is abandonment. You see, they may act as though they are strong, confident, and in control, but deep down they are weak. They rely on you to feed their ego, to validate their existence, and when you walk away, you expose the reality. They are nothing without someone to control. They crumble when they can no longer use you as a source of power. The Bible teaches us about the importance of wisdom and discernment. It warns us about wolves in sheep's clothing, those who disguise their true nature to deceive and harm others. We are not called to stay in relationships that destroy our peace and joy. We are called to walk in truth, in freedom, and in the purpose God has set before us. So, how do we walk away with strength? First, we recognize the cycle of manipulation and refuse to engage. Second, we stand firm in our decision, knowing that healing is found in distance, not in returning to toxic environments. Third, we lean on faith, understanding that God never intended for us to live in bondage to another's control. When you walk away, you don't just free yourself, you dismantle the very foundation upon which the narcissists built their power. You leave them to face themselves without your energy to sustain their deception. Walking away is not easy. It takes courage, it takes faith, but on the other side of that decision is peace, restoration, and a life free from oppression. And that, my friends, is where true freedom begins. A narcissist is not just someone with an inflated sense of self-importance. They are individuals who manipulate and control others to feed their ego. They seek power, admiration, and validation, often at the expense of those around them. Their behavior is not simply arrogance or confidence, it is a calculated effort to dominate relationships and maintain control. To truly understand how walking away affects a narcissist, we must first understand their core traits and the mechanisms they use to keep others under their influence. At the heart of narcissism is a deep insecurity masked by grandiosity. A narcissist presents themselves as superior, intelligent, and entitled, but beneath the surface they are fragile. Their self-worth is entirely dependent on external validation. They do not have the internal strength to affirm themselves, so they extract admiration from others. They seek out people who are empathetic, caring, and willing to give, because such individuals serve as a constant supply for their need for attention. One of the key tactics narcissists use is manipulation. They do this through emotional exploitation, gaslighting, and guilt tripping. Gaslighting is particularly powerful because it distorts reality. A narcissist will deny things they have done, twist your words, and make you question your own judgment. Over time, this erodes self-confidence and makes you more dependent on them. They create a dynamic where you feel you need them to interpret reality, which allows them to maintain control. Another common trait is their sense of entitlement. A narcissist believes they deserve special treatment, and they expect others to cater to their needs without question. They have no problem taking advantage of people because they see themselves as superior. When their expectations are not met, they react with anger, manipulation, or even silent treatment, punishing those who refuse to conform to their demands. Lack of empathy is another defining characteristic. While they can pretend to care when it benefits them, true compassion is absent. They are unable to genuinely understand or connect with the emotions of others. If someone expresses hurt or disappointment, a narcissist will often dismiss their feelings, shift blame, or make themselves the victim instead. This makes healthy communication impossible. When confronted about their actions, they will twist the situation to make it seem as though they are the ones being wrong. A narcissist thrives on control. They do not enter relationships to give, but to take. Whether in friendships, romantic relationships, or even professional environments, they seek to establish dominance. This is why they use tactics such as love bombing, overwhelming someone with attention and affection in the beginning, only to withdraw it later to create insecurity. This cycle keeps their victims in a constant state of emotional confusion, always trying to regain the approval they once had. One of the most destructive aspects of narcissistic behavior is the way they exploit vulnerabilities. They observe and learn the weaknesses of those around them, using this knowledge to manipulate. If someone fears abandonment, a narcissist will use that fear to control them. If someone struggles with self-worth, the narcissist will alternate between praise and criticism to keep them dependent. They create an emotional roller coaster that makes people feel as though they cannot live without them. Their inability to accept responsibility is another dangerous trait. A narcissist never truly apologizes. Even if they do, it is either insincere or strategically done to regain control. They shift blame onto others, refuse accountability, and rewrite history to suit their narrative. If they fail at something, it is always someone else's fault. If they hurt someone, they will claim they were provoked. Their refusal to acknowledge wrongdoing makes it impossible to have a healthy and honest relationship with them. A narcissist also engages in a pattern of devaluation and discard. Initially, they put their victims on a pedestal, but over time they start to criticize, belittle, and demean them. This is intentional. They want to lower your self-esteem so that you rely on them for validation. Then when they feel you are no longer useful to them, they will discard you emotionally, physically, or both, often without explanation. However, if they sense you are moving on, they may try to regain control through guilt, false apologies, or even sudden affection. This is not because they love or care. It is because they fear losing control over their source of validation. A narcissist's behavior is rooted in fear. They fear being exposed, losing control, and most of all, being abandoned. Their entire identity is built on external validation, and without it, they feel empty. This is why they react so strongly when someone walks away. They may retaliate, spread lies, or attempt to manipulate their way back into control, but their reaction is not a sign of love or remorse. It is a desperate attempt to maintain their dominance. Understanding these traits is essential to breaking free from their grip. When you recognize that their behavior is not about you, but about their own internal wounds and fears, you begin to see clearly. You realize that their love is conditional, their apologies are tactics, and their promises are empty. You see that the only way to truly be free is to walk away. Walking away from a narcissist is one of the most powerful actions you can take, not just for your own well-being, but because it directly undermines the very foundation of their control. A narcissist thrives on power, manipulation, and emotional dependence. Their entire sense of self is built on maintaining dominance over others, extracting admiration, and feeding off the emotional responses of those around them. When you choose to walk away, you are doing something they never expected. You are reclaiming your autonomy, breaking free from their cycle of control and forcing them to confront their own weaknesses. A narcissist works hard to create a dynamic where their victims feel emotionally and mentally dependent on them. They may initially overwhelm you with affection and admiration, making you feel valued and special, only to slowly withdraw that approval and replace it with criticism, manipulation, and guilt. This push and pull cycle keeps you trapped, always striving to regain their validation. But when you walk away, you disrupt this cycle. You refuse to play the game. You remove yourself from their web of influence, and that is something a narcissist cannot handle. Walking away is not just about physically leaving, it is about detaching emotionally and mentally. A narcissist does not just seek your presence, they seek your energy. They want your thoughts to revolve around them, your emotions to be dictated by them, and your actions to be in response to them. Even when they hurt you, they want you to react because your reaction fuels their sense of importance. When you walk away, you take away the fuel. You remove the supply that sustains their ego. This leaves them feeling powerless, unimportant, and in many cases, enraged. A narcissist's biggest fear is losing control. They are not afraid of being alone in the way a healthy person might fear loneliness. Rather, they are afraid of being without an audience. They need someone to manipulate, someone to validate them, and someone to reflect back the false image they have carefully constructed. When you walk away, you shatter that illusion. They are left with themselves, and the reality of who they truly are is something they have spent their entire lives avoiding. They do not want to face their own emptiness, so they will do everything in their power to pull you back into their world. At first, they may try to convince you to stay through apologies, promises of change, and expressions of love. But this is not genuine. A narcissist does not change because they do not see themselves as the problem. Their apologies are only strategies to regain control. If pleading does not work, they may resort to anger, insults, or even threats. They will accuse you of being selfish, ungrateful, or even the one who is toxic. But this is a desperate attempt to make you doubt yourself and reconsider your decision. But the truth remains. Walking away is the most powerful thing you can do because it denies them what they crave most: control over you. Some narcissists will attempt to rewrite the narrative after you leave. They may spread lies about you, portray themselves as the victim, or attempt to turn mutual friends and family against you. This is because they cannot stand the idea of losing and must maintain the illusion that they are the ones in control. But none of these tactics change the fact that you have freed yourself from their influence. Their words, their actions, and their attempts to manipulate no longer hold power over you because you have chosen to step away. Walking away is an act of strength. It is a declaration that you will no longer be controlled, belittled, or manipulated. It is choosing yourself, your peace, and your well-being over their need for dominance. It is a recognition that no matter how much they try to convince you otherwise, you are not responsible for their happiness, nor are you obligated to endure their toxicity. A narcissist wants you to believe that you cannot survive without them. But the truth is, they are the ones who cannot survive without someone to control. Once you walk away, true healing begins. You start to rebuild your sense of self, regain clarity, and rediscover who you are outside of their influence. You learn to trust your own judgment again, to set boundaries that protect your peace, and to surround yourself with people who genuinely love and respect you. The scars they left may take time to heal, but with distance, you begin to see the truth. You were never weak for enduring their manipulation. You were strong. When a narcissist senses that someone is pulling away, they will do whatever it takes to regain control. They may suddenly become kind, apologetic, and attentive, promising change and making grand gestures to convince the person to stay. This is not because they genuinely care, but because they fear losing their source of validation. If manipulation through kindness does not work, they may switch tactics, becoming angry, cruel, or even threatening. They will blame, shame, and guilt trip, doing everything possible to make the person doubt their decision to leave. They may even portray themselves as the victim, claiming they are being unfairly abandoned, misunderstood, or mistreated. Their goal is simple: to make the other person feel responsible for their pain and, in doing so, manipulate them into staying. A narcissist fears abandonment because it strips them of power. In their mind, they are the ones who should control when and how a relationship ends. They believe they should be the ones to discard others when they are no longer useful, not the other way around. When someone walks away on their own terms, it is a direct challenge to the narcissist's perceived authority. It forces them to face the reality that they do not have as much control as they thought, and this realization is deeply unsettling for them. One of the most telling signs of a narcissist's fear of abandonment is their pattern of seeking out new sources of validation the moment they sense they are losing their grip on someone. If they feel that someone is about to leave, they may quickly latch onto a new person, love-bombing them and making them feel special, just as they did in the beginning of their previous relationship. This is not because they truly care about this new person, but because they cannot stand the idea of being alone. They need to ensure they have a fresh source of admiration, attention, and control before the old one slips away completely. Even after someone has walked away, a narcissist will often try to pull them back in. They may attempt to re-enter their life through messages, apologies, or dramatic gestures. If those fail, they may resort to more manipulative tactics such as spreading rumors, turning mutual friends against them, or creating situations designed to provoke a reaction. Their goal is not reconciliation, it is regaining control. They do not care about mending the relationship in a meaningful way. They simply want to reestablish their dominance. The only way to truly break free from a narcissist's grip is to recognize that their fear of abandonment is not a reflection of love or genuine attachment. It is a reflection of their need for control. They do not fear losing you as a person. They fear losing the power they had over you. This is why walking away is the most effective way to dismantle their influence. When you leave and refuse to engage in their manipulations, you force them to face themselves. You deny them the validation they so desperately seek. The narcissist's fear of abandonment is ultimately a fear of exposure. They have spent their lives crafting a false image, using people as mirrors to reflect back the illusion of superiority they wish to maintain. When those people leave, the illusion begins to fade, and they are left with the uncomfortable truth. They are not as powerful, not as special, and not as in control as they have led themselves to believe. Walking away forces them to confront that truth. And for a narcissist, there is no greater devastation than that. A narcissist's reaction to being abandoned is often extreme because their entire identity is built upon maintaining control over others. When someone chooses to walk away from them, it creates an internal crisis that they are unable to process in a healthy way. Instead of reflecting on their actions or taking accountability, they respond with emotional outbursts, manipulation, and even vindictive behavior. The reason for this is simple. A narcissist sees abandonment as an attack on their superiority, an exposure of their weaknesses, and a complete loss of control. At first, their reaction may seem like sadness, regret, or even remorse. They may beg for another chance, apologize profusely, and claim they will change. However, these reactions are not genuine. They are strategic attempts to regain control. A narcissist does not reflect on their behavior to understand how they hurt others. They only see the loss of control as something they must correct. If their pleas for reconciliation do not work, they quickly shift tactics. They may begin blaming you, saying that you are the one at fault for leaving. They may try to guilt trip you, claiming that you have betrayed them or that they did everything for you. They will distort reality to make you question your own decision. If emotional manipulation does not bring you back, a narcissist often turns to anger and retaliation. They cannot accept that someone would walk away from them without consequences. They may start spreading rumors, lying about you, or turning mutual friends against you. Their goal is to punish you for leaving and to maintain control over how others perceive the situation. If they can convince others that you are the villain, it helps them maintain their image while also isolating you from support. A narcissist's rage after abandonment is not about heartbreak, it is about humiliation. Their pride is wounded and they feel powerless. To regain a sense of dominance, they may try to provoke you into reacting. They will create drama, send hurtful messages, or even act as if they have moved on quickly to make you feel insignificant. They want to elicit a response because any reaction, even a negative one, gives them a sense of control. One of the most dangerous aspects of a narcissist's reaction to abandonment is their unpredictability. They may alternate between love and hate, kindness and cruelty, making it difficult to predict their next move. This is why it is crucial to maintain strong boundaries and avoid falling into their emotional traps. No amount of reasoning, explaining, or defending yourself will change their perspective. They are not interested in understanding your point of view, they are only interested in regaining control. The best way to handle a narcissist's reaction to abandonment is to remain firm in your decision and refuse to engage in their manipulations. They will try every tactic to pull you back in, but the more you detach, the more powerless they become. Their inability to control you will eventually force them to seek validation elsewhere, while they may never truly let go of their desire for revenge or control. They will eventually shift their focus to a new target. Walking away and maintaining no contact is the most effective way to break free from their influence. A narcissist struggles to cope with abandonment because it forces them to confront their biggest fear, their own emptiness. They spend their lives constructing a false image of superiority, power, and control, but when someone leaves them, that image is shattered. They are left with the reality of who they truly are: fragile, insecure, and deeply dependent on others for validation. Since they lack the emotional tools to process this, they react with defensiveness, manipulation, and attempts to regain control. One of the most common ways a narcissist copes with abandonment is by seeking immediate validation from someone else. They cannot bear the thought of being alone, so they quickly latch on to a new source of attention. This could be a new romantic partner, a friend, or even family members who will sympathize with them. They engage in what is known as love bombing, showering this new person with affection and admiration just as they did in the beginning of their relationship with you. This is not about genuine love or connection. It is about proving to themselves and others that they are still desirable, still in control, and still powerful. Another coping mechanism narcissists use is rewriting history. They will twist the narrative to make it seem as if they were the ones who chose to walk away. Even if you were the one to leave, they will tell others that they were tired of you, that they lost interest, or that you were never good enough for them. This helps them protect their ego and maintain their sense of superiority. They cannot admit that someone rejected them because that would mean acknowledging that they are not as perfect as they claim to be. Narcissists also cope with abandonment by seeking revenge. They cannot handle the idea that someone has escaped their control, so they may go out of their way to make that person suffer. They may spread rumors, try to ruin reputations, or even attempt to sabotage your new relationships. This is not because they truly care about you. It is because they want to reassert dominance. They want to remind you that they still have power over your life, even if you are no longer in contact. Some narcissists retreat into self-pity as a way of coping. They play the victim, exaggerating their pain and suffering to gain sympathy from others. They will tell anyone who will listen that they were mistreated, abandoned, or betrayed. They use this tactic to gather supporters who will validate them and reaffirm their belief that they were not the problem. This allows them to avoid taking responsibility for their actions and shift the blame onto you instead. Despite all of these tactics, the truth remains that abandonment deeply wounds a narcissist. They may never admit it, but being left behind forces them to confront their fears of worthlessness and insignificance. They try to mask this pain with anger, manipulation, and distraction, but underneath it all, they feel exposed. This is why they react so intensely. It is not just about losing you. It is about losing the carefully constructed illusion they have built around themselves. The best way to ensure a narcissist does not regain control is to completely remove yourself from their influence. No contact is the most effective strategy because it denies them the opportunity to manipulate you further. They will try to provoke a response, whether through anger, kindness, or guilt, but refusing to engage is the most powerful thing you can do. By walking away and staying away, you strip them of their power and force them to deal with the reality they have worked so hard to avoid. A narcissist copes with abandonment by doing everything except facing themselves. They will distract, manipulate, and lash out, but they will never engage in true self-reflection. This is why leaving a narcissist is not just an escape, it is a victory. It is the one thing they never expected, the one thing they cannot control, and the one thing that forces them to confront the truth about who they really are. A narcissist never truly moves on after being abandoned because their attachment to others is not based on love, respect, or genuine connection. Instead, it is rooted in control, validation, and the need for an emotional supply. When someone walks away from them, they may appear to move on quickly, finding a new partner or acting as if they are unaffected. But this is merely an illusion. Deep down, a narcissist never fully lets go of the people they once controlled because their sense of self is built on having power over others. Even long after the relationship has ended, they may still try to exert influence, manipulate, or pull their former victims back into their orbit. One of the primary reasons a narcissist cannot truly move on is because abandonment exposes their greatest fear, that they are not as powerful as they believe. When they are in control of someone, they feel important, superior, and dominant. But when that person leaves, it disrupts their carefully crafted illusion. They do not process this in a healthy way because self-reflection would require them to admit that they were at fault. Instead, they seek to restore their sense of power by finding a replacement or by attempting to regain control over the person who left. A narcissist often moves on with remarkable speed, immediately jumping into a new relationship or surrounding themselves with people who admire them. This is not because they have healed or found real happiness, but because they cannot tolerate being alone.